Okay, just got a really quick tip here for you today, looking around the search for DB Cooper video at this sort of stroke geometry effect and how we can achieve this in Blender. So I've got a Blender file open here where I've got Suzanne. We've got that geometry effect around Suzanne and it's responsive to how we move around our viewport and how we move our camera. And it also kind of scribbles about a bit like a pen stroke, like we get in this plane, kind of got this sort of scribble effect going on around the plane. Make a new Blend file, delete everything in there. Let's add in a Suzanne, subdivide this, and then we're going to add in a solidify modifier. Put that to like around 0.2. So turn on flip normals, even thickness and high quality normals, and disable fill rim. Then come down to shading, and let's make two materials. Our first material we're just going to leave as a black principled shader. That's not that important. And our second material is where we're going to be doing all the work. Okay, I'm just going to make the world background black. Okay, so let's delete the principled shader and let's add in a mix shader and a geometry node. We're going to plug the back facing of the geometry into the facing of the mix. And then we're going to add in an RGB node and a transparent node. So come down to your material settings, turn your blend mode to alpha blend so that the transparency effect works, and then in the solidify modifier settings change the material index to 1. So now the solidify modifier is going to respond to this second material, and there we go. We've got our Suzanne with a stroke effect around that's responsive to our viewport. We can change up the thickness in the solidify modifier, and that will change around the thickness of the stroke. A cool thing as well is that using this RGB node, we can change the color of the stroke. So let's just add a camera to our scene. So I'm just going to add some simple rotation to the Suzanne. So now we've got the rotating Suzanne head. And something else you can do that's quite cool is if you were to put in a emission shader between these, then you still get that same stroke but with emission. So it's sort of like a neon effect on that outline, which you can still also totally procedurally change the color of. So to get that scribble effect that sort of looks like it's been drawn, thankfully Blender allows us to animate pretty much everything. So if we come to our solidify modifier and hover over thickness and clamp and press I over them, it will create a keyframe for those. Then comes the end of the animation and do the same, hover over them and press I, and we get 2 keyframes. If we come down now to our graph editor, you can see we've got our keyframes here for thickness and clamp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this menu here, which allows me to access the modifiers. I'm going to throw in a noise modifier on the thickness. I'm going to change the scale that to kind of here. I'm going to change the strength to about 0.055. And you can see we're sort of getting that scribbling effect. Now if I just tweak with these settings a bit. Now I'm just going to do the same on the clamp. Modifiers, add a noise modifier. Make it fairly low strength. So now we're getting this sort of scribble drawn effect going around the model as if it's kind of been hand drawn. We're sort of getting that effect from it. So something else you could do now that you've done that is if you are using an emission node, that will be totally responsive. That will affect the brightness of the emission coming off of the strength of that stroke. Okay, and that's how you create the effect from the search for DB Cooper.